You ever wonder what an administration really prioritizes? Well, sometimes the best way to find out is to just look at the paper trail they leave behind. So that's exactly what we did. We took a single week's worth of official White House press releases, fact sheets, and actions to see what kind of story they're trying to tell. Let's get into it.
And you know what? When you lay it all out, a few clear patterns really start to jump out. We're going to walk through three big themes that kept showing up. First, a huge push on tax policy. Second, some really big moves on energy and foreign policy. And finally, the kind of behind-the-scenes but super important work of getting their people into key government jobs.
All right, first up, the economy. This all went down during tax season, so it kind of makes sense that the White House was all over this theme they called the working families tax cuts. The messaging was incredibly consistent, and it was aimed right at the finances of American families and businesses.
Now, to really push this economic story, the administration actually highlighted these headlines from news outlets in one of its own releases. See the common thread? They all talk about larger tax refunds. It's a way of driving home the story they want people to hear, that their policies are putting more money back into your pocket.
At the very center of this narrative was one specific number, $3,400. According to their fact sheets, that's the average tax refund this season, which they say is an 11% increase from the year before. It's a really clear strategy, right? Don't talk about abstract policy, give people a relatable dollar amount.
And it wasn't just about big numbers. They also wanted to make it personal, so they used testimonials, like this quote from Nicole Mendoza, a waitress from Georgia. By highlighting her experience with the no tax on tips provision, they connect a broad national policy directly to a single person's financial benefit.
The documents also get into the sheer scale of the claimed impact. We're talking millions of filers taking deductions for tips and overtime, tens of millions of seniors for Social Security, and tens of millions of families for the enhanced child tax credit. The message here is pretty clear. This is broad relief for a lot of different kinds of Americans.
The administration also tried to connect these tax policies to the health of the broader economy. Their fact sheets included charts like these, showing growth in real wages, that's your pay after inflation, and a big jump in factory construction. The argument they're making is that tax relief for people and businesses is what sparks this kind of growth across the board.
And the story extends from the individual taxpayer right to the business owner. This quote from a company's CFO argues that having stable tax policy gives businesses the confidence they need to invest and create jobs. So you see the narrative shift here, from an immediate tax refund to long-term economic strength.
Okay, so let's pivot now from the domestic economy to the world stage, because in that very same week, the White House was making some major announcements on energy and foreign policy, all designed to position the U.S. as a dominant global force.
One of the biggest moves of the week was this, the announcement of a U.S. naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, according to the official release, the stated reason is to counter Iranian aggression and make sure shipping can pass safely through this critical waterway. The administration itself called it a bold and decisive action.
But this military action is tied directly to a policy they call American energy dominance. Take a look at this graphic from a Department of Energy release. More than 100 empty crude tankers, all headed for U.S. ports. The message is just unmistakable. As the U.S. projects military power in a key energy region, it's also positioning itself to be the world's energy supplier.
And to back up this policy, the administration released some pretty incredible production numbers. They're pointing to all-time highs for crude oil and natural gas production and record-breaking exports of liquefied natural gas. These are the stats they're using to claim the title of undisputed global energy leader.
So how does a big idea like energy dominance actually happen on the ground? Well, a key piece of the puzzle is something called a presidential permit. It sounds formal, but it's essentially an official thumbs up from the president that's required to build or operate things like pipelines that cross an international border. And what do you know? This week, several of these permits were issued, all on the very same day. They authorized new pipeline construction and the continued operation of existing ones at the U.S. Canada border for major companies like Bakken and Enbridge. It's a very real, tangible signal that they're committed to building out this energy infrastructure.
Okay, so beyond the big policy announcements, there's the less glamorous but absolutely crucial work of actually running the government. And this week's documents also give us a great snapshot of how this administration is shaping the federal government and the courts through its appointments.
In just a few days, the White House sent a whole range of nominations to the Senate to be confirmed. You can see a huge focus on the judiciary. That's 8 nominations right there. But there are also key positions at the State Department, Treasury, Homeland Security, and a bunch of other agencies.
And we're talking about some seriously important jobs here. New ambassadors to key allies, high-level undersecretaries who run huge parts of the government, and the top lawyer for the State Department. And those 8 judicial nominees? That's a huge deal, representing a potentially long-lasting impact on the federal courts.
So after all that, what can we really say about this 1 week at the White House? Let's just quickly recap the big themes.
3 clear priorities really do stand out. First, a domestic focus on the economy, all driven by a story about bigger tax refunds. Second, an assertive foreign and energy policy, mixing military moves with record energy production. And third, the ongoing structural work of filling important government and judicial posts.
And that brings us to our final question. When you see these 3 themes all woven together, economic relief at home, a projection of military and energy strength abroad, and a steady hand shaping the government's personnel, what do you think these priorities, taken as a whole, really signal about the path forward?